Okay, we are live. Today is Friday the 13th, spooky, and I'm here with my scary friend, David Tipton.
Oh yeah, scary.
Today is, what is it, Friday, October 13th, 2017. Happy Friday. Here again with David. And today on Free Hands Friday, number 88, we're going to talk about repertoire. So David, where should we start?
Where should we start? Probably at the beginning. I mean, that's, it's like when I first got the instrument, there are instructional things out there, but basically, I wanted to learn how to play songs, and where do you start? I mean, it's not like, especially I started in 2001, and at that time, I mean, you couldn't go out and get a songbook, a stick songbook, and I know Greg has published some of his music, but there's not really much out there in the way of that. So, it's like, how do you learn songs on the stick? And for me, early on, it's like, first off, especially when you're first starting, you don't want to jump the gun. You don't want to overshoot yourself. And, I think I started off with just a couple of like simple tunes. One of them was like Leaving on a Jet Plane by John Denver.
Really?
Which is 3 chords.
Can you play a little of that right now? Can you show us how easy that is? I mean,
so the simple version would be, and it goes on, but it's basically, it's 3 chords. It's G, C, and D. And for me, like the melody is fairly simple too. It's not too hard to learn the melody. And so I started with like tunes like that. And basically what intrigued me was, you've got to learn kind of what falls naturally on the instrument, what's comfortable, and finding like where am I going to play these chords? How am I going to play these chords? Because I can just do, but I tend to like to keep my hand more stationary if I can on the bass side. So let's see. And then I jump to this different inversion for the bass chord, where I'm using the root down here and like an E and a C here.
like a C first inversion.
Yeah, and then like a bass drone on the D. But that's part of it, is just figuring out, how are you going to play those chords? Like when I do it now, I do a different thing. I do. I'm trying to like more spread out voicings and stuff like that. But in the beginning, it's really just a matter of like, first off, learning where the notes are, where the roots are, where the chords are, and just finding something that works for you.
So let me add something to that. So there are certain keys that I do and don't like. Now I know that there are, some stickists that have multiple tunings and multiple instruments, and I'm not one of those people. I use one tuning. It is my tuning, and I don't like. And really, like when you try different tuning, it's so fun to explore, just to kind of see what happens.
Oh,
but
yeah.
In a performance kind of situation, you want to go with what works. Now, in a song like G, just because of my tuning, I'm right here. That's my lowest note.
Okay.
And I prefer, generally speaking, when I'm playing unaccompanied, to be on this string, to kind of root there, and use this lower string as a variation, because you can't go any lower, right? Once you get to that, it's like you've got to start planning your next step. And for me, it usually means looking for real estate up here, or if you're chording, whatever it is. And something that helped me early on, at least to learn songs, was to have a key. I mean, like, it's as simple as it sounds, like have a key that you like to play it. And for me, D is good because D, if I'm in the key of D, I'm right here on my instrument. So
Right.
for those with matched reciprocal, this would probably be your, would this be your C?
So you're matched reciprocal? Is that what you're playing?
Actually, I'm raised in the left hand. So your C is my D.
Okay. So yeah, this is my C.
Okay, so you're up one. Right. Okay, so this is my C. So I'm closer to the first fret, that first line marker.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah. So
oh,
right, yeah. So just for me, it's just like the tension or just the sound of it. I like it. And I like to crossover is what I really like. And so that's kind of what I was getting to. And that is that when I play a G, oftentimes I'll default to this first inversion if I'm playing unaccompanied. Because then it's a much nicer move to, if I'm playing unaccompanied, I'm more apt to use just to invert things.
Right.
And that's come from playing the song over and over again. And like, hey, I can play F major 7, but I kind of like a D minor 7. I know that's not the way the song's written, but it sounds so cool. And so with a, what is it? I'm not quite sure what the melody is, but just like I know that I would want to start inverting almost right away.
Right.
Just because it's just more natural. Like that first inversion in left hand is just magic. I love that.
Well, yeah, and I think that's really you know, when I first got the instrument, one of the first things I figured out how to play was this G chord. And I probably played that for like 3 or 4 days, just like kind of cementing that in. And then like, okay, well, what can I do on top of that, and so on, and that's really like the start. But yeah, finding voicings that fit for you. So when you're talking about like your keys that are comfortable for you, though, I tend to disagree. I like to I like to play in all the keys. And like I'll even take like a tune like Norwegian Wood. I actually, when I perform it, it depends on my mood. It's too long to go through all 12 keys, but I usually will take it through like maybe 4 different keys, just for fun, yeah. And then usually I end up I start in. Well, now a lot of times, let's see, I'll start in G, I'll do it in C, then I'll move up to D, and the last time through D, then I'll go into Across the Universe, which is in D. But yeah, I'll do different things like that. Just and I think it's important to, you know, well, this is getting off repertoire, but like circle of fourths, circle of fifths. You know, I play through that all the time. I practice scales. I practice chord movements, all kinds of stuff going through that circle, just so I can play in any key at any time.
And that's a real sign of a jazz musician. That, I mean, like kind of one of the prerequisites. It's, can you play the song? Yeah. Can you play it in tune? Can you play it in time? And you know, can you play it in any key? Because the singer likes it in E flat or something like that. And just to be able to like do that. I mean, that's like.
Yeah, I'm not one of those guys. I can't just like.
Yeah, but you can play with some consistency, which is great. So I'm thinking, you know, just when you start, you might have a key that feels good.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to start on that second to lowest string, which is for me is the 7th string.
Okay.
Here, and to then be able to go down or to the 4, or to be able to go down to the 5. You know, when you're doing something like, right, for instance. I'm playing in the wrong key. See, here we go. So this is yeah. You can hit the 5 there really easily. So sorry. And I'm playing in the major key. But I suppose what I'm getting at is finding a key or finding a pattern that works, and then find that building block that you're talking about. It's like after I've played it enough where it's kind of like, well, I know that shape goes there, and I know it goes, you know, like, and for me, it's all like each key has its own personality. Yeah. And I mean, I have my preferences just because I don't have as much real estate on a 10 string. So, you know, I'm a little more guarded about my keys. I have keys that I prefer, love C, love D, love E, F. F is in particular just because it's right up above the line.
Okay.
Great. So that's one that I'm pretty fond of. And so I think that would be G for illustration players. But anyways, the long and the short of it is finding one to start with and that you identify with, like the white keys on the piano. You know, it's just like
and like I think like C, C, G, or F are great keys to begin in. You know, they're easy enough to work. But yeah, so you got me thinking about one of the things that, like, also when I was first learning, like I said, there's not music. Where do you get this stuff? And you know, you can go online and get like chord progressions to any tune that you want. Basically, you just type in a search for it. I love working off of like lead sheets, you know, out of fake books that have like the chord progression and the melody, and that's basically all I need. But I will say the one thing that I learned early on is like, be very wary of any notated music. It's you can't always trust what's there, and a lot of times they overcomplicate them. They'll add in, like, you know, all these substitutions and things like that. And for me, a lot of the time, it's a matter of just like stripping it down to its bare essentials, and then over time, like adding in other stuff and rebuilding it up. But when you first start, it is so overwhelming to get like to see this arrangement with like, you know, a ton of chords on it, and most of them, you know, you use your ear, and you can tell, you know, you start figuring stuff out, and it's, you know, because what you have is like, you know, especially if you're working off like some notated music, like the classical stuff, you basically have to play what's written.
Yes, I mean, structured with the left hand. With like the left hand is very structured. So if I may just kind of add to that. So like, but then when you play it the second time, you can add. So what I do is in that, what I'll do is variation.
Right.
So the second time I'll play it, I'll actually play the. It fits so perfectly. So you can put the left hand and you can chord that, and then it sounds for the listener, it's like it's brand new. And like, you're not in the room with me right now, but those notes sound so sweet together in the upper registers, and that's something that I want to touch on with you, because as the stickist becomes more advanced, in my opinion, they start using these higher registers, and it starts to sound more like two guitars and less like a bass note with chords and a melody above it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then you can use that variation using just chords. But chording things in the left hand, so like saving a little for the second verse or the third verse, that's stuff that I remember Dan Chapman, he mentioned when he came back from the Mallorca event a couple years back. He was saying how the people out in Europe, this is a generalization, but how they would very carefully structure their set, and how they kept in mind like the kind of devices that they had available to them. So they might wait to use like an echo pedal, or they might wait to use like a looper pedal or something like that.
Right, right.
Establish the sound first and like kind of the vibe and what you're going for, and then you can play this instrument, it's in tune, you know what you're doing, and then you can stretch out a little. And I was like, wow, it's so simple and so sweet. And so, yeah, anyways, when you're learning for the first time a new instrument and trying to do a whole song, I always overcompensated in the left hand. just find one good note, right? Like,
yeah. Well, that's really the thing I'm finding. Like the more I play, like, you know, I feel like a lot of my early arrangements and stuff like that, I'm like shouting. I'm just like it's all there and stuff like that. And now my approach is, you know, I'm starting to lay back and breathe more. And when I am arranging, it's like, you know, I'm fine with just like, yeah, just holding a bass note or just implying a chord, or, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a lot of my early arrangements are, you know, like that kind of motor driven, you know, just keep it in time. And now it's like, I'm fine with, and then playing something or, and opening up more space. But I, you know, and I think that's, you know, musicians come to that over time. You know, in the beginning, you're so, you know, you got so much going on up here, just trying to remember the chord progression, the melody, the timing, the, you know, and really, you know, what I've found over the years is like the whole, you know, it's almost like a spiritual practice. Like every song you learn, you're trying to get to a point where you can just play it without thinking,
yeah,
without, you know, with being able to listen to what you're doing as you're doing it in real time. And
playing to the room, like being a part of the event, being a part, like somebody in the room.
Yeah, but it takes a long time to get there, and I think that's what, you know, I think a lot of people find that really frustrating when you're first starting out and you're trying to learn a tune, and I mean, you're just happy to get through it, you know, without too many mistakes, and you really have to learn to like let mistakes just fly by because you're gonna make them, and
For sure.
and
The drummer that I played with for the longest time, this guy Steve, the one piece of advice I always remembered, he would tell me, just as the bassist in the band, right, is don't stop.
Yeah, right.
Only make me look like a jerk if you stop, Gene. And I was kind of, oh, okay. So like you're part of something, but you're part of the rhythm section. So it's like, and when you're a three-piece band, like, you know, boy, you miss that one instrument that's a third of the band. And so just don't stop. And then also like recovery times. And so if there's a hard part, certainly that I would get stuck, you know, in the very structured stuff. Yeah. Is very hard to recover from. So you just have to be able to press on very quickly. So, you know, you just have to keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
You just have to keep rolling. Don't stop. Because really, they'll only remember that you stopped. They won't remember that you messed up.
Yeah. And you know, it's like, so I was playing a gig last night and there was a tune that, you know, Michelle by the Beatles. I've played that for years, and I don't know, you know, sometimes things just shut down. And I got like through the first part, and I got to a section, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And so I just kind of noodled around for a little bit, and then said, okay, and jumped back to a part that I knew, and I got through the rest of the tune just fine. But it's like, you know, sometimes, yeah, just, you know.
You're the only one that knew that in the whole place. You know, everyone was drinking coffee or wine or whatever it was.
So, you know, it was probably pretty noticeable, but it wasn't, you know, it happens. And, you know, it happens less and less to me, but it still happens. And you know, but you keep, yeah, I mean, that really is the key, is just kind of keep going. And when, you know, when you're playing solo, I mean, the you know, yeah, I mean, I can just noodle around for a bit and pretend like, you know, I'm just going off on a tangent or something, and then jump back into it.
I do that, right?
Playing with other people is a much more, it's a different game. But I also, I mean, that's the thing. So, you know, I highly recommend like playing with other people and learning like to accompany on the stick. You know, it's like in the beginning, I just learned all these arrangements that I had you know, from start to finish. And then if I wanted to play them with a singer or something like that, it's like I really couldn't jump back and forth between like playing a nice accompaniment and playing my arrangement.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we should talk about that, because then you mentioned this to me before we started, and that was because the instrument is so versatile and because it's not really tied down to a clef or to a specific type of amplifier or really anything at all. It can play pretty much any role. And now it shines in an unaccompanied version. And Emmett actually made a comment about that at the last Stick Night when so it was really great. Stick Band came out, so Bob Culbertson and
yeah, I've been watching some of the videos.
That was a great night. Yeah. And Emmett said that the instrument really shines in an unaccompanied state, but I found this same thing that you're mentioning, and that is that I have worked so hard as a soloist to learn this damn song. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and play everything, chords and the melody and the rhythm, and I've got my inversions, and you know, maybe the feeling is a little different. Like when I was seeing you play Landslide, I was amazed at how much it sounded like the recording, and I was like, damn, mine is so far off. But I was like, just, you know what? If people recognize the song, like that's good enough. 80%, like, you know, like.
Yeah, and like, like I was saying, like, be wary of notated music. You know, it's also, I mean, don't be afraid to take liberties with tunes. It's like there's a lot of tunes that I do, you know, I do a simplified bass part, or I do, you know, I change the feel or the rhythm to it, and you know, it's like Wicked Game, Chris Isaak, you know that tune.
Oh, that's a fun.
Like, you know, so the actual tune has that kind of that groove that. Or how's it go? But when I'm playing it solo, I don't do that. I don't do that groove. I do. You know, it's you know, I'm arpeggiating the chords more. So it's one of those things that, you know, I'll try to throw that in at certain points, but it's very hard to play both those parts.
Right. And that's playing stick. And I remember Greg said it, and it didn't really, it kind of clicked then, but looking back on it, even if you could play exactly what you wanted in both hands, it wouldn't be a stick player. It wouldn't sound like a stick, right? It's not like this. It's a compromise. It's a negotiation. Yeah, but it's also the stick. And so that's what happens when you shift your focus even so slightly in the left hand from that rotor to embellish the melody in the right hand, or you're more focused in the left hand and you're just chording in the right hand. Whatever it is, that's what makes the instrument so unique. And that's what makes why it feels like a stick. And we're still kind of figuring out what that is.
Yeah, and yeah, precisely. So I mein, that's, you know, you've got to be adventurous and willing to take liberties with tunes and not worry about, you know, like you said, if, you know, most people will recognize it. You know, I still play some tunes that, you know, might be questionable and how recognizable they are, but
here's a point. So I play clocks a lot. So
okay.
Clocks is pretty much in every set. Like Mercy Street, like especially when I'm with stick players, they're like, play Mercy Street. You know, I'm like, I know other songs. You know, like I want to hear Mercy Street. And I'm like, okay, it's cool, it's fun to play. I'll play it. With clocks, it's in the key of E flat, and basically all it's. And Coldplay likes this chord progression. So it's basically E flat major and then B flat minor. And then it's very close to Wicked Game, what you were playing just now. So it goes from the major 1 to the minor 5.
Right.
Then it goes to F minor.
Okay.
2, right? And then back to the 1.
Okay.
It pretty much does that through the entire song. And what I was playing, or what I liked to hear in playing unaccompanied, was E minor, and then to B minor, and then to the 4. So it was, which is how it's written, but I like to hear it this way.
Oh, right.
So it resolves. It's much more. It's just a little easier on the ear because you're expecting to hear that fourth quality, which is the 4 of E flat, which is A flat. So it was just one of those things where it's like, I'm not changing it. You know, I look back at the video and I was like, how long have I been doing that? You know, but
yeah, you're right. And that's really it. It's you know, I always just try to get to like the essence of the tune, the feel of it, and stuff like that. And so, you know, it's you can spend a lot of time like killing yourself trying to be technically right, or you know, you can find something that works, that sounds good, that kind of flows. And you know, that's what I go for, because it'll make you crazy.
Essence of the song. I like what you said that. So it's like you said, you know, you break things down to the basics. It's like the essence of the song. And
yeah.
Just because there's 10 strings there doesn't mean you have to play them all at the same time. Like find, you know, one good bass note and hit 2 notes in the right hand against it, and that's fine. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Which which is funny, because that was, you know, one of the big things when I first picked up the stick was I played a lot of fingerstyle acoustic guitar, open tunings, stuff like that, and I just loved the sound of like open strings ringing. And I think a lot of like what I came up with was like just trying ways to recreate that, because you don't have open strings on the stick. They're all muted. And so the only thing you're ever hearing is what is being held down in that moment.
Yeah. And when I see a stick player, I'm the first thing I watch is the left hand. Just because so much of what makes the stick magical, it all happens in the left hand, and the way people use it, and the way maybe they're playing crossed, or they're using, like they've got an inverter or something like that. But so much of it starts with the left hand to me. And I found that as I've played more, I've become more relaxed in the left hand. And that I like the pieces that are most enjoyable are the ones that I can drive with the left hand with confidence. So it's like I've got these motions, these rhythms, these patterns worked out, and I'm comfortable doing it, right? And so when I get there with a song like, Warmth of the Sun is always one of my favorites. And it's just because it's so super easy in the left hand. And that what I get to do is I get to embellish these higher registers, which gives it that open sound. And then you're playing the stick, right? Then it's kind of like, oh yeah, you think you hear a guitar. And I think I hear a guitar. That's why I'm playing it that way, right? I love these registers. Right. These fingers, I never knew were so relevant. Like these two fingers like make all the difference. How you use these 2 fingers in those upper registers when you're playing unaccompanied.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, I do stuff like, you know, there's this tune, Ingrid Michaelson, The Way I Am. How's it? It's all bass. Except to here. You know, that's when I start throwing in those notes.
Yeah.
And it really spreads it out and opens it up. Yeah.
You know how I think of the left hand? The left hand, this is the bassist. This is like, I think, this is like the cello section right here. This middle finger. Okay. And then these are kind of the rhythm guitars. And so when I'm like, you know, I'm like, what is the bassist doing? What is the cellist doing? And so I think of it as like I don't think this all the time, and I didn't just make that up. I really do think that. Like, I really do think like, and this is like always the bass finger. So sometimes, you know, you're inverting stuff and you're just, like I love the sound of like. So let me show you what I'm doing there. Is playing a C with a first inversion, and like so in the left hand, and then you can so effortlessly move up to an F here, and it happens so naturally. So. So what's happening is I'm playing a C first inversion there, and I'm actually playing it in the right hand first inversion too. So I've got E, G, C, right? And then I just slide up this finger one note, so it's going there, and then so I'm sliding into an F, and then this hand is sliding into an F as well. So it's going.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So you can just like when you overlay them like that, you can just do such cool magical stick things.
Yes, and that's the thing that fascinates me about like this instrument and this tuning and everything is like is like the chord chemistry. I think Bob had a thing on that at one point. You find all these different voicings, these ways to work that to me, it's like, even tunes I've been playing now for, 10 years or so, it's like I like to take them and mess them up and find like, if I'm used to playing this certain set of chord voicings for it, let's try and play it on a whole different section of the neck or a different, different approach to it. But I think, so like I said, like when you're first starting out, like pick some simple tunes, it's like 3-chord or, chords with like folk tunes, House of the Rising Sun, or, stuff like that. And don't get overly complicated. And, you pick up some of these songbooks and first thing you see is like, the sharp 11, flat 9, sharp 11, whatever. And it's really intimidating. But start off simple tunes and you begin to see like, the more tunes you learn, the easier it is to learn tunes because you learn these like little chord progressions and they're all like little building blocks that fit together. And I'll play a tune and it's like, actually, and that's something I have to watch in like my sets when I'm playing. I never have a set list. I just kind of play by whatever I'm feeling. Yeah. But sometimes I'll play a tune and I want to play another tune right after it. And I have to stop myself and say, the reason I want to play that tune is because the chord progression is so similar. It's like almost the same thing.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I do think like, when you're trying to build a repertoire, you have to think about stuff like that, like having a variety of tunes. Like you don't want all just ballads. You don't want, you need like some upbeat tunes. You need some of this and that. And you really have to, you want to be able to have that stuff to pick from.
Yeah, I'm glad you're mentioning that because I carry around a piece of paper with me in my bag here. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got it classified where, what does it say? Yeah, I've got standards, 70s and 80s. I've got like 70s and 80s. I've got Bach, like I have a whole section for Bach, and then I have songs that I need to revisit. So it's like I've got so I'll try to vary. I'll pick one from here. I'll pick one from there. It's like I did some Joni Mitchell. Now I need to do some Katy Perry. I did some Bach. Right. I'll do standard or something like that. But I will. I've got my first 4-hour set in the middle of December coming up, and so I'm really kind of tripping. So I figure that's 4 45-minute sets, and I figure that's 9 5-minute songs, and so I'll kind of vary in between that. And I'm starting to do more looping. So I feel like I'm more comfortable having a loop and kind of stretching on that. But I'm still like getting better at the actual process of looping. And so I'm trying to figure out, because I don't mind like comping. I can do some comping, but I'm not as much of a soloist, right? So I get through the song and for me, like I'm still figuring out what it what it takes to be an unaccompanied stick player, and that is you need to be able to stretch. And for me, it's like I would rather warp out on some chords and not really play a solo so much as just explore the sounds of the chords against one another. And that's just what I'm comfortable doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's the other thing is. Yeah, you want variety in your set. You kind of also want to, be able to read the room. And like a lot of times, like gigs I start off in restaurants and stuff like that. Early on, it's a older crowd, and as the evening progresses, they get younger and younger as they come out at night.
Sure.
And so a lot of times, early on, I'm playing, stuff that I know appeals to the older crowd. And but you also get families and kids and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, like I'll play the Katy Perry tune and they'll see like these little girls turn around and rise a little big and that kind of thing. But it's you develop, I think, kind of a sense of like what's appropriate in that moment for the people who are there. It's like I played I played this gig for a bunch of little old ladies a couple months back, and it was like and I already knew exactly what I was going to play without even having to think about it. It's like because like going in there and playing Black Hole Sun just when it makes sense.
You do it just to say you did it, but like
right.
I had to do it at a rose garden. So they did this rose garden, and it was this beautiful rose garden down in Temecula, and we do it every year. And it's kind of exactly what you're saying. Although it's not like in kind of like a bar or like a cafe or even like a small hall kind of environment. It's an outdoor environment, and you've got little kids, and then you've got an older crowd of people who actually work at this beautiful rose garden. Hundreds of different kinds of roses, and they're all labeled. And so, what do you play at a rose garden? What do you play at a rose garden? And it was so much fun because I was like, I'm playing like I'm in a rose garden. And I don't even know how to say this, but like I was exploring stuff and just kind of like experimenting, but like still trying to keep it in the context of a song. But I had to tell myself, I need to stretch here. Right. I know my repertoire. I know like my constraints. I know how long I have to fill. And I know that I want to be able to play something that's recognizable, but I'm also really enjoying kind of setting up the mood here. And so that's where I get to kind of where I get to relax the left hand a little more.
Right, right.
So, getting back to repertoire, and I'm glad that you've been getting us back to repertoire, which is what and that is just, and so really quick, and I think we're actually at time. We're almost at 40 minutes. Can you believe it?
Okay, it goes quick.
Yeah, so Gene Perry, David Tipton here, talking repertoire on Freehands Friday. I think it's number 88. Could be number 89. I'm forgetting now. But I think we've covered a lot of for the new stickist, as well as for people who are starting to get established. Myself included. Where I'm starting to play longer sets and what I'm working towards, and so keeping it simple. Being prepared to experiment when you're feeling comfortable, feeling the room, knowing yourself, and so much of it comes down to me with just like time and effort. So knowing how long you have to play, and once you know all those constraints, you can help kind of drive your repertoire.
Yeah, and just one more quick thought on that is, most of the music I play, it's stuff I grew up with, but I also take stretches and I play like, some current music and stuff like that. But I would say like, play tunes that resonate with you. Play stuff that, I get requests all the time, and it's like, and I've learned a couple of these tunes, and I'm just like, this is not me. And I drop those tunes. It's like, play stuff that you find interesting, and chances are other people are going to find it interesting too. But be careful about like the tunes that you select. You'll know. For me, it's a case of like, if it's a tune like I mess around a little bit with, and then I walk away and I'm still singing it in my head or something like that. And, you know, or like the next day it's coming back to me. It's like, I know, okay, that's a tune I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just like sage advice, because I've learned songs, like when I was doing Song of the Week stuff, people were like, hey, try this. And they said, try Garbage Song. And I'm the guy I was working with. And I was like, yeah, I'll just try it, just to say like I did.
Yeah.
And I didn't, it just didn't feel the same, you know, and
well, you can do it. I mean, that's it. It's like, you know, and I've learned tunes like that. You know, I proved to myself like, okay, I can do it, but it's like, it's like, it's not like a tune I want to go to. It's not a tune.
Really, it's not something you're passionate about. And it's just you up on the stage. It's like, you're the only guy that has to dig it, and then everyone else can come along. It's kind of like how I feel like as a soloist. It's just like, I'm just going to enjoy myself, and you guys can all come along. And I think that once people kind of recognize that and they get a feel for you, like after the first minute, and after about 10 minutes, but people will be like, God, you know, like this is so working. This is great for the room. And no one ever really says that other than other musicians.
Yeah.
But you can create that feeling. If you're there, then it's like you really have arrived. And if it starts with one song, an open mic, 3 songs, you know, like opening for a friend, or actually venturing out there. And I love seeing the posts on the Stickus of guys that are getting out there, playing 6 songs, playing 8 songs, and, you know, getting those opportunities. Play what you're passionate about is what I hear you saying, David Tipton.
Yeah, and yeah, just really quickly, you know, sometimes people come up and they ask, you know, can you really rock out on that thing? And I go, well, there are guys who can, you know, they were born to be wild. I was born to be mild.
Consistent, right? Like, I mean, like, I'm here for like 3 more hours, bro. Like, you know, maybe there will be some rocking out, but like, I'm also like, you know, there's like one here.
Well,
and
no, I think, you know, as a musician, it's important to, you know, be authentic and play what you know, what you feel and what resonates with you. And if you're trying to play stuff that, you know, and that's also a great lesson, playing with singers, playing with other musicians, they're going to push your boundaries. And you know, it's like, I've been playing like this Willie Nelson tune. I never thought I'd be playing a Willie Nelson tune.
What tune are you playing?
Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and it comes out great. But I mean, and someone else pushed me into doing that, and I, you know, so I appreciate that. But then, you know, you do have to push your boundaries. But other times, you know, you're going to know right away, like, no, this is not for me.
I love what resonated with me is when you said be authentic. And that is like, do what you like to do, like play what you want to play. And playing for other stick players is something totally different for playing for people in a room, you know, like, what is that? It's like, what you want them to say is, I love that song. And for me, that's when I know I've done my job. That's when I really like, that gives me the greatest sense of satisfaction.
Yes. So I'm feeling like it's probably time to wrap this up.
Wrap it up. It's hard to say goodbye, David Tipton. Not gonna lie, getting time with you is pretty awesome. So talking repertoire with DT and having a good time doing it. You know, maybe we'll do this again really soon. We gave ourselves 40 minutes, actually 45 minutes, almost to the second. So it's kind of fun to be back in the longer format because it's just not rushed for time. So maybe we'll do another song learn and just do it in 15 minutes. For right now, it feels pretty good stretching out and talking about repertoire with you.
Been a pleasure.
Cool. Well, until next time, David, thank you so much.
Right.
Excellent Friday, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, take care.
Take care, David.